Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Monroe County Women's Commission meeting on September 15th, Commission Chair Nichelle Whitney Wash expressed concern that the Commission has not had access to their meeting room. She also said the Commission needs a secretary and a vice president.
We need a secretary, and I would encourage a vice chair for this commission. The secretary is necessary. We have got to identify someone who will serve as a secretary. The primary role of a secretary is to capture minutes. So we did not record written minutes for our last meeting. Okay, so we're gonna have to retroactively do that. But also this person makes sure that the meeting minutes and agendas get to our Board of Commissioners so that this stuff can be published online, okay? The vice chair is the person who works hand in hand with the chair. You can facilitate meetings, you can essentially do most of the things that the chair does, okay? I recognize that everyone is new and stepping into a vice chair role may seem like a lot, especially after over your second meeting, okay? So I'm not going to push anyone to be a vice chair right now, but at the start of the year, I will be doing some one-on-one conversations to see who would at least be interested, and then let's prepare you for that role, okay? But we do need a secretary. And so we don't have to vote on that today in case anyone wants to do a one-on-one and chat, but in our October meeting, we'll need to designate that.
Next, Whitney Wash suggested that they consider changing the date and time of the meeting in 2023 to accommodate Jennifer Crossley's schedule.
So we should try to get to some sort of consensus. I personally am recommending that we stick to third Thursdays for the remainder of this year and reconsider with 2023, because when you all signed on as commissioners, that was the understanding of the time. I think if it's important that we can get 6 people here for quorum, and I know that Commissioner Tiana would have been here as well for this time, rather than adjusting for one person who's incredibly important, and that vote does matter. But I think feasibility wise, I would recommend we stay with third Thursdays for the remainder of this year and then reconsider 2023.
Oh, I like that. The commission voted unanimously to continue meeting on the third Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. and reevaluate in 2023. The Bloomington City Council Committee of the Whole met on September 14th to discuss a right-of-way petition. The petitioners, Solomon Lowenstein Jr. and Julia Bierman, asked the city to vacate 2 12-foot wide alleys. Senior Zoning Compliance Manager Liz Carter presented the petition to the council. She said the petition was heard by both the Board of Public Works and the Planning and Transportation Department, who did not support the petition.
So the request is to vacate these 2 north-south alleys that are 12 feet wide, seen here on the survey that was provided in the packet. So this is just a brief rundown of the criteria that the Planning and Transportation Department and of course City Council uses to decide if a vacation should be approved or not. So the main portion of it is just growth for the city, and that is why. These are all the recommendations and input we received from utilities, from public entities, and from various departments. So the City of Bloomington's engineering department, the city engineer in particular, responded when we sent out the asking for feedback in early 2022. The city engineer responded that he did not see a community benefit or justification for the vacation of this right-of-way. The city utilities department, as I said earlier, objects to right-of-way vacations unless they have an easement that they can approve. At this time, they do not. Duke Energy responded when we had asked for feedback, saying that any vacation affecting their utilities, they would require easements as well. That's a standard response that we get from Duke in every vacation that we've asked for feedback on. CenterPoint and Comcast both responded to our request for feedback, saying they didn't object, but they didn't support. Everyone else that we reached out to did not reply. And then, of course, this went to the Board of Public Works and got a recommendation of denial. And lastly, the City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation Department does not support right-of-way vacation petitions. So our department's recommendation is for denial as well.
Council member Susan Sandberg said she appreciates the long-range plans of the Urban Development Ordinance, but wanted to know more about the existing properties. She asked Lowenstein about his housing and the improvements he would like to do. Lowenstein responded.
The long-range improvements are basically to maintain the existing properties. My concern is because even though the properties pre-existed the dedicated alleyway, I'm concerned that, in effect, the alley was encroaching the existing building. The garage on lot 11 is at 1010. The foundation is in part of the alley, the right-of-way. That does need repair. I would like to repair it at some point in time. I don't have an immediate plan next month to repair it, but my concern is to keep that structure intact because it is used. I also, yes, the back side of the garage as you see it does need some foundation work. It still is standing, but I want to be able to repair it without any issues. I do maintain the yard area as you see. I've continued to maintain it since I've owned both of the properties. Basically, I want to keep the properties intact and up to date.
And
So
these
that's the long-range plan.
And these are single-family standalone homes? Are they for rent?
They are single-family rental properties, yes.
Okay, thank you. That helps clarify.
And the property at 1002 at lot 18 is basically a storage facility now because of the location of it. I wanted to make sure I did do quite a bit of repair when I purchased the property at tax sale several years ago, putting a new roof on, putting windows, and redoing the siding to make sure that the property was presentable from an exterior standpoint, and I want to continue to maintain that. The other aspect of it, I'm using there is the public right, the right-of-way now. It's the only access off of the street to the improved property, and that is being used as, on occasion, a driveway so I can get access to the building, and I would like to be able to do that on a more permanent basis. So I guess those are the long-range plans, and the other long-range plan would be eventually to totally rehab the existing structure at 1002.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jim Sims said he would pass on the vote since he needs more time and information before voting. Councilmember Susan Sandberg said she agreed with Sims. The final recommendation to the City Council was 0 yes, 2 no, and 4 abstentions. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying. I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me. But with Girls Inc. in my corner, there for me every day, believing in me,
Showing me what's possible.
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body, to say I can rather than I can't,
To say no with no apology.
to be a leader, to finish school,
To own my future.
to break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner. With you in my corner, I will not be another statistic. I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting on September 13th, Engineering Senior Project Manager Roy Ayton shared a progress report on the West 17th Street Multi-Use Path project.
This was originally a project that we had from the roundabout at Arlington and Monroe all the way to Grant Street, but we divided the project off. We built the first half this summer from Walnut to Grant. And the second half is an NDOT project that's come through. The project was let in early spring and awarded to E&B Paving. So we are in the utility relocation phase right now. So over the next few months, we'll see different utility companies coming out just to move the utility lines, the pole lines, and that. And then come next spring, we'll have the construction begin. We believe around March. And there'll be different phases of an MOT plan that comes through for this project. One will be a complete closure of the Kinzer 17th intersection for about 45 days. And then there'll also be a one lane westbound will be detoured for another phase of it. And we're trying to get those phases to happen during the summer months when school's out. So we're working with a contractor for that. But just wanted to bring the attention to the board and if there's any questions.
Next, Director of Economic and Sustainable Development, Alex Crowley, gave an update on scooters in the city.
This is an update on scooters. There is no action needed as a result of this this evening. So let me start by describing the scooter team that is within the city, who's on that, what role the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development has. It's a wide-ranging team. It involves legal, planning, public works, ESD, which is my department, Economic and Sustainable Development, and some others involved in the overall kind of decision-making around scooters in town. The role that we have, in my department specifically, is in license renewals. So when there is a annual license renewal, we process those, review them, et cetera. We issue invoicing and receive payables and then turn those payables over to the controller's office, another department, by the way, involved. And then we are the primary interface with scooter companies. So that's the departmental role within the broader team of the what we call the scooter team. That team meets about quarterly. We will meet again in early October, and that's time to be in advance of the scooter renewals that will happen in the fourth quarter. There are three companies in town: Bird, Lime, and Vio. They launched originally in August and September of 2018, unannounced to us. In the case of Bird, Lime, I think, gave us a heads up that they were about to come. Vio launched later, and they were much more engaged with us pre-launch, so we knew they were coming. The original way that we were operating with them, first they launched. Then a couple months later, in November of 2018, we instituted an interim operating agreement, which was an agreement that we set in place to help guide their operations in town. And then that was essentially replaced in July of 2019 with Ordinance 1909 from City Council, which established the sort of scooter ordinance and more specifically changes to other city regulations that now incorporated scooters.
Crowley said the scooter team will be meeting in October to discuss renewing these scooter agreements for the next quarter. Next, City Legal Chris Wheeler asked the board to appeal a violation of bamboo at a property located at 2739 East Briggs Bend. Wheeler said that although they normally recommend the board fine citizens with bamboo on their property due to its status as an invasive species, this particular property has a concrete planter to contain it.
I think what the board has seen with regards to bamboo recently is that staff recommendation and board orders are to eradicate bamboo where it's found. We have run across a situation tonight, however, where staff is recommending that the appeal for bamboo be upheld and that the NOV be voided. The reason and rationale behind this is for the property in question at 2739 East Briggs Bend is that the bamboo is actually a potted plant. In this case, it's in a well-contained brick and concrete structure. It's walled and well-defined. The characteristics of bamboo are such that it wouldn't come out of this concrete and brick structure unless, of course, that structure were to somehow become compromised. So with that in mind, that's what the staff's recommendation is going to be.
Wheeler said that the staff is following precedent with the bamboo petitions and recommends the property is monitored to ensure the planter is containing the bamboo.
I think it's good for the public to appreciate that this is kind of a precedent and there's a rationale behind it. We're not going willy-nilly into this.
Yeah.
So there's the fence that defines the property, but then more telling would be the actual planter itself. Coming up. Yeah, so there's a well-defined wall, and it has a floor to it. There's a concrete floor and brick walls, and I very inarticulately referred to it as a box, but it's much more than that. At any rate, what we would like for the board to do tonight, if it's the board's pleasure, would be to grant the appeal, void the notice, and direct hand to annually monitor the property to determine whether the bamboo has spread beyond the brick and concrete planter.
The board unanimously voted to appeal the notice of violation. At the Bloomington Plan Commission meeting on September 12th, Development Services Manager Jackie Scanlon gave her report on the Planning Department. Following Scanlon's staff report, Commissioner Jillian Kenzie asked if the Planning Department would send out more formal reports to keep the public informed.
Yeah, I'll just add comment here that I do think that the public is interested in this. Obviously, they were very interested in when we were making approvals for UDO revisions, and I think it's our duty to make sure that they continue to be informed so that then it isn't a surprise when we maybe make we want to change the procedure in some way so that there's more constant accountability and responsiveness to what the public demonstrated some interest in through the UDO process. So I just would probably, maybe it's a suggestion, just to be a little bit more open and transparent. And if there's a way to track it on a public website, I think that would be really useful. It might prevent us headaches or complaints later about a lack of public knowledge about the process or how many came through. I mean, if we're flooded, I think they'll want to know that. If there's no response, I think they'll need to know that too. So it's a request, but I really like the idea of having a formal presentation, and if it is in memo format, maybe that gets recorded with us too so that we're kept aware, or at least ensure that we have some means of making ourselves aware of what the status is.
Scanlon replied,
you might recall, I believe Director Robinson in our budget for this year is working on some outreach related to ADUs specifically. So it's kind of like ADUs is a little bit ahead in the process than plexes are. You know, when we first did ADUs, we weren't really getting very many. We made some changes, and now we're kind of like further down, looking at possible, providing possible ADU examples to the public, or having public meetings related specifically to those. So I do think that I would think may end up getting mirrored with the Plex process as we kind of work through how to make them work, if that's possible. But yeah, definitely duly noted, and I don't know when the next time the department or the administration will request changes to the current Plex information. I do think there's some interest in kind of letting the current regulations run for a little while to see if, if they point one way or the other. I think having one in a year is pretty low. I think staff was anticipating that it would be low. It takes a while to get things like that off the ground. But yeah, definitely, I'll speak to him about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, the commission discussed an apartment complex that University Properties hopes to build next to the football stadium. Zoning and long-range planner for the city of Bloomington, Gabrielle Halbrow, presented an overview of the property.
This is a request for major site plan approval for a new mixed-use building in the neighborhood just west of Memorial Stadium. The site comprises 4 existing parcels on the south side of East 19th Street, going from Grant Street on the west to Dunn Street on the east. The current zoning is mixed-use student housing. In the 2018 comprehensive plan, this is designated, the future land use zone or land use area is designated as neighborhood residential. The existing land uses on the site include two multifamily developments, multifamily dwelling structures. Together they have 30 bedrooms, and there are also 2 single-family dwellings. The proposed land use is one mixed-use building with uses including student housing or dormitory, office, and small retail sales. The surrounding uses to the north is a mixed-use building under construction by the same developers. To the south and west are existing multifamily dwellings and student housing or dormitory. And to the east is Memorial Stadium and IU parking.
The board unanimously approved the site plan. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting on September 12th, board member Kirk White asked Director of Utilities Vic Kelson about the cost of carbon used to filter the water. Kelson said the activated carbon is normally enough to handle contamination. However, these last 2 years have had unusual circumstances.
We feed activated carbon all the time in the summertime to control DVPs, and it also helps some with the taste and odor. We just had an excursion that was more than we could treat right now.
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job explaining how the department's doing its best to handle that over the last couple of weeks. Because my point was that if we're making extra efforts, this may not be an extra effort, it may be just standard, but if we're making extra efforts, extra expenditures to help the quality of taste and smell, then that's a good thing for the public to know.
I think so too, yeah. We started feeding it in 2017. as part of trying to control disinfection byproducts more effectively. And we had a side benefit of taking out the taste and odor compounds. It used to be the water tasted like a lake basically all summer long, and we got hundreds and hundreds of complaints. So it's better, but these last 2 summers we've had some unusual circumstances, and it's,
On September 12th, at the Ellettsville Town Council meeting, the council heard from Town Attorney Darla Brown about the Parks Board non-reverting fund.
I can take it. At the last meeting, there was some discussion about some changes to be made to the language, and Sandy and I together looked at the minutes from the last meeting and the language that you have in front of you in Ordinance 2022-10, I think addresses everyone's concerns. And essentially in Section 3, at the bottom of page 1, instead of it saying that the Parks Department is going to handle the money, it makes it clear that the town clerk treasurer is going to do it. And I also added a Section 7, which makes it clear that if the town council repeals the ordinance, the monies remaining in the fund will be transferred to Parks and Rec. The general Parks and Rec fund that you have open now.
Town Treasurer Sandra Hash said she did have one concern with liability in regards to electronic receipts.
I will say I do have one concern, and right now they are electronically receiving receipts, which means I have to, allow them into the town's checking. So if they ask me to do that, I probably will start another checking account independent from the general fund.
Yeah, do not allow anyone in that general fund.
Right.
Ellis moved to table the vote, but the motion was not seconded. The council voted 1-2 to decline the ordinance to establish a non-reverting fund for the Board of Parks and Recreation. And that is all for Cats Week. Thank you for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.